Hey, this is Mark at GalaxyCon. I have a treat for you. I'm here with legendary writer and editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, Jim Shooter. How you doing today, sir?
Hanging in there, doing well.
So how's the con going for you?
It's been great. A lot of good people here. I can't believe all the guest lists they have. So many good artists and other creators, writers. It's been a lot of fun. People seem to be enjoying themselves. You know it's a good con when everybody seems to be having a good time. And, the dealers are happy and everybody's happy.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your work. What was some of the more of the cherished work that you did in the past that you love the most?
I don't know. I did my best on everything. I mean, I tried my best. I guess I liked working on the Legion of Superheroes, and I think a couple of those came out pretty well. I liked when I went to Marvel and I was doing the Avengers. Had a couple good little runs on that, and also Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I wrote the Spider-Man strip with Stan for 2 years, the newspaper strip. I would write the story, break it down panel by panel, do little scribbly layouts for John. You don't need to give John Romita much information. He just has to know what's going on, and then he does it his way. And Stan would write the dialogue, and that's how we worked. Me story, Stan dialogue, John art. And we did that for 2 years, and it was good in so many ways because A, I think we did some good work, and B, you're working with Stan every week on Spider-Man. I learned a lot, and I think he appreciated that I knew what I was doing, and so we had a really good collegial relationship there, and I don't know, that was a lot of fun. I like doing the Jeanette Kahn and I, when she became president of DC, she called me up and we had lunch together. I was vice president, editor-in-chief of Marvel, and she had just discovered that there had once been a Marvel DC crossover, and I said, yeah, that was 1975. It was just before I came to Marvel, and she said, why can't we do it again? I said, well, we can. She said, you can make that deal? I said, yeah, I can make that deal. And so we sat there right at the lunch table and just wrote a deal memo. It's very simple. Take turns producing. The one that isn't producing is the editor. Whichever company isn't producing is in charge editorially. Take the costs off the top, split the rest down the middle. It was like a one-page contract, and that seemed good. And she said, let's do it every year. I said, that's fine. Okay. So we made it so it would be every year. And we only got 3 of them done, but still that was we did 2, they did 1, and then for a number of reasons it didn't go forward from that until years later. Then they started it up again, but that was good. I felt very good about that, and I happened to have written the first one because it was Marvel's turn. Jeanette and I decided to start with Superman and Spider-Man again. And the thing is, I was the only person at Marvel who had written both Superman and Spider-Man. And so, I'm thinking I'm really the only guy with the experience here. So I did it myself, and I thought it came out pretty well. And that was kind of a good thing. But we did so many really remarkable things, innovative things, good things.
You were responsible for getting a lot of the movie properties into Marvel in the 70s, correct?
Yeah, well, actually, Roy Thomas got us Star Wars. and I'm telling you, that was a tough sell because Marvel was in a death spiral, and trying to convince the president of the company that we should invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in a license was a Herculean task. I was just the associate editor, and I was Mr. Spock. I was number 2. And Roy was actually just, at that point, a contract writer. But Roy had a lot of clout, because he's Roy, But he managed to get that done. He got Stan to take his side, and they convinced the president of the company to invest whatever it cost. And we did Star Wars, and Star Wars all by itself kept Marvel alive because we were on the edge of death. The whole industry was. Warren went out of business in 1978. Warren went out of business. Charlton went out of business. Archie went all reprint, no new material.
DC was imploding.
Yeah, and Harvey just stopped publishing. And on one day in June, DC canceled 40% of their line, and they had about 100 books, so it was about 40 books. So all these creators were on the street; they had no jobs, and we were able to pick up quite a few of them. And I just kind of, by that time I was editor-in-chief, and I just kind of cherry-picked. And I was able to get people like Louise Simonson from Warren, and Tom DeFalco from Archie, and Larry Hama from DC, and also Milgram and Denny O'Neil, and a bunch of other people. And so we put together a really good team. It was like we're in this death spiral, and then miraculously we have all this talent available. And I had the 27 Yankees, man. I had all these great talents. Archie Goodwin, Louise Simonson's that's better than Christmas. So we turned it around. And the thing is, Star Wars kept us alive long enough to turn it around. So basically, Roy Thomas saved Marvel. He bought me a year to turn it around, and we did. So it was cool.
And you had some great titles come out in the early 80s, like G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Secret Wars. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with Secret Wars.
Well, it started with Kenner Toys, and they licensed from DC Comics, the DC Comics superheroes, because they wanted to try superhero action figures. Well, all the toy companies spy on each other. So Mattel found out that Kenner was going to do, secret superheroes as a toy line. And so they, as a hedge against Kenner, they wanted to make sure they had superhero toys too. And we were the only other game in town. So they came to us, they met with the licensing people, and our licensing people were, I don't know, they'd never opened a comic book, and they didn't know who the characters were or anything. I think they thought they were selling widgets. I have no idea. As usual, I was summoned, and when in a meeting like that, they asked me to come to the meeting because I was the only executive who could talk intelligently about what was in the books. And so I went to the meeting, and Mattel people were saying, we don't know any of these characters. Who's Daredevil? Who's Ghost Rider? What is this? And I said, wait. I said, we have a lot of great characters. Some of them have had some pretty good exposures. Spider-Man on television, Hulk on television. And they said, and then we have other great characters, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all these other great characters. And they said, yeah, but they don't have the kind of Q score. That's how many people, you ask 1,000 people who it is, and then if 900 of them know, then that's Q score is 900. They said even those guys don't have Q scores like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Robin. That's the big four. Everybody in the world knows who they are. And I said, that's a good point, but I said, a lot of toys are bought in the comic book direct market and at conventions like this. And in the direct market, we outsell DC 5-1. And I said, so believe me, in one of your major markets, people know these characters. And that would impress them. And then the head executive from Mattel said, yeah, but can you get us some publicity with like non-comics fans? I said, I can handle that. I said, first we'll do a 12-issue story, make it spectacular, make it a big epic thing. All the major heroes, all the major villains in one big story. I said, that'll get us some publicity. I said, I have a few ideas about how to get you some media. And they said, okay, deal. And so we did the deal. And Mattel didn't really have much to do with the comic book. They had nothing to do with it. And we didn't micromanage the toys either. They kind of did what they wanted. They even put characters in the toys that did not appear in Secret Wars, like Daredevil, I think. But so we just set out to make it the best story we could, and I knew something about the toy business, so I timed the first appearance. I was planning on having characters come back from Secret Wars slightly changed, because if you go off to war, you come back changed. All right, and so one of the changes I wanted to do was have Spider-Man have a new costume, black costume, and so the I timed it so that the first appearance of the black costume Spider-Man was going to be in January. Well, that's when Mattel had their pre-toy fair. And all the buyers going down to Scottsdale, Arizona to see what toys they wanted to buy for their stores and their chains and so forth. And so when that black Spider-Man suit came out, Spider-Man has a new costume, we had a media sweep of the country. TV, newspapers, radio, all three wire services called me. All the big papers in the country, all wanted more information. And our PR people were scrambling like crazy to keep up with it. So that doesn't change the story at all. I just timed it so it would help them. And same thing, the origin of the black costume takes place in August. Well, that's when Mattel sells in the Christmas toys. And then we get another publicity bump there. So Mattel was very happy with me, because all the buyers on their way to the Scottsdale pre-toy fair, all they were hearing about on the news was Secret Wars and the new characters and Spider-Man and all that. So, and it did fantastically well, and we did our best with the comic book, and that did fantastically well. So it was a big deal, and actually, we didn't know we were doing it, but we were kind of inventing the company-wide crossover. And as soon as we did that, and everybody saw what a success that was, well, then the next thing you know, DC's doing Crisis, and every company was doing some kind of crossover every summer then. And it was a good thing for comics in general, you know?
Tell me, what book do you see the most people want you to sign? What issue, what title, and what issue?
It depends on who else is at the show. If, say, Larry Hama, who was major creator on G.I. Joe, if he's at the show, I get a lot of G.I. Joe. You know, Bob Budiansky was major creator on Transformers. If he's at the show, I get a lot of Transformers. But just in general, I would say maybe Secret Wars, and also, yeah, well, number 8, yeah, number 1. I number anything, and I get a lot of an awful lot of a variety of Marvel comics, and of course I had companies of my own after that, Valiant, Defiant, and Broadway. I see a lot of Valiant books. The trouble with Valiant books, they're hard to find. You know, it's. I asked my friend Chuck Rosansky, who runs Mile High Comics. This guy's got an inventory of like tens of millions of comics. I said, well, why can't, you know, if I need copies of this, how come I can't get any? He said, the people that have them want to keep them. And I think that's a good sign. That means you did something right, you know. So they're hard to come by, actually. But I have signed an awful lot of Valiant books, and I don't know. That's the major ones, I guess.
Well, we don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just want to ask one question. You were, what, 14 when you started? 13. 13 years old when you started working in the comic book industry. What was that like? What was some of the challenges you had to deal with being that young, coming into an industry?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, my family needed money. And when you're 13 years old, they're not going to hire you at a factory, you know. And doing a paper route wasn't gonna solve any problems. So I loved comics, and I thought somebody must get paid for this. And so I didn't know what a comic book script looked like. I didn't know there was a script. So what I did is I put together, I made a story that looked as much like a comic book as I could make it look. I made a cover for it. I even colored the cover so they'd know just what I wanted. And I laid out every panel, and I wrote in the dialogue, and I sent it one into the head editor, DC Comics, Mort Weisinger, and I get a letter back from him, just a little note. It said, send me another one. So I sent him 2 more, and then he called me up, and I lived 400 miles away. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He called me up, and he said, we're going to buy these 3, and I want to start using you as a regular writer. I said, oh, great, Well, that money came in real handy. That saved our house, I mean,
We're making more than most 13-year-olds.
so better than working down at the dry cleaner, I'll tell you that. So anyway, and it was fun. I loved it. So I just kept going. And when one time he asked me, he said, I want you to get on a plane, fly up to New York, check into the hotel across the street, spend a week coming to the office so we can teach you some stuff. And I just turned 14 at that point, and I kind of hesitated. And he said, how old are you? Because he thought I was a college kid, see. He says, how old are you? And I said, well, I just turned 14. He says, put your mother on the phone. So I did, and she was on board. We needed the money, and she was all gung-ho about it. So he got me back on the phone. He said, I don't care how old you are. If you can do it, you can do it. And so I had to take my mother with me on my first business trip. It was kind of a little bit dorky, but so anyway, we went to New York, and they did teach me a lot of stuff, and they were very good to us. Put us up in a great hotel. They paid for everything. Took us out to dinner. Took us to a Broadway show. I mean, really couldn't have been nicer to us. And during that week, I learned a lot of stuff. And I even learned about what a script looked like and what you were supposed to, how most writers work. And I asked the editor, I said, you want me to start doing it this way? He says, no, the artists love your layouts. All right. So I kept doing it that way all the time I worked at DC. And so that was interesting because I guess I had more interaction with the artists than most writers as I was doing the rough drawings for them. And the thing is, these are Hall of Famers, and they would follow the kids' layouts. And if I made a mistake, they'd say, oh, look, he did this wrong. And they'd fix it, and they'd tell me why. They say, look, you should have moved this character over here. Oh, okay. And then I would understand. I kept learning from them. And the thing is, I look back, and I was learning from all-time great grandmasters like Wally Wood and Kurt Swan and Gil Kane, and I mean, all these great people were helping the kid, It was just kind of magical. I really loved it, and when I graduated high school, I already had a good job, so I stayed with it.
Are you working on anything right now, or are you just enjoying yourself, meeting your fans at the cons?
Well, I like to go to the conventions. I love to meet the people. I have tremendous respect for those people. I mean, they supported our industry, and I want to, give back if I can. And but I am working on some things. I'm writing a series for Netflix, and I'm doing some other projects, writing projects. So I keep busy all the time, and I haven't done any mainstream comics lately. Mainstream comics are not doing well right now, so there hasn't been much opportunity there.
When you're working for a company like Netflix, you're kind of moving up in the world, aren't you?
Well, yeah, it's a whole different thing, and it's great that I got the opportunity, and it's really nice that I'm able to do it, and they seem happy. I'm happy.
You got a great career ahead of you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm just starting out. Here I am. I'm 73 years old, but I'm just starting out.
Okay, well, we've taken up enough of your time, sir. It was a pleasure speaking with you, man. It was an honor. And this is Mark at GalaxyCon with the legend, Jim Shooter.